Good deeds and headlines. When Glenn James, a homeless man from Boston, found a backpack filled with $42,000 in cash and turned it in, the media immediately picked up the story. Before long, the story of his good deed had gone viral. But as Tovia Smith reports, James's story is just one of many examples of people making moral decisions. But is publicizing these good deeds making people better or worse? James's story. He's the homeless man in Boston who turned in a backpack filled with $42,000. Went viral. So did another recent story about a Dairy Queen manager from Minnesota who stood up for a blind man who didn't know he'd been robbed. The blind man dropped a $20 bill, and a woman picked it up and pocketed it. The manager threw her out of the restaurant and then handed the man $20 from his own pocket. Just a few weeks before that, stories swirled about four college football players who found themselves inside a store that was accidentally left unlocked. Instead of just taking what they wanted, they left every penny they owed at the checkout. One television report called it a story of honesty that's become a shining beacon of righteousness. There are lots of people who suffer from moral myopia. And so when you see this good happening, it renews some of your faith, says University of Texas professor Mimi Drumright. She says these are the types of stories that you hope will inspire copycats. The reports of these good deeds probably are going to beget more good deeds, and that's a good thing. Already, countless strangers have been paying it forward with $20 tips to the Dairy Queen worker, and everything from jobs to gift cards for the other do-gooders, not to mention the small fortune for Glenn James. But at the risk of twisting any of these precious good news stories into more bad news, experts say there may be a downside to overplaying it. They did do the right thing, and that's commendable, but heroic? I think not, says Carnegie Mellon ethics professor Peter Madsen. He sees the high praise swirling around the stories as the kind of moral grade inflation. They had an obligation to do what they did. It was not above and beyond the call of duty. They really just did what we should have expected them to do, he says. When you celebrate what should be extraordinary behavior as extraordinary, experts say, it sends a dangerous message. I do worry about a culture in which people are giving selves credit for not having done terrible things. It sets a really low bar for what it takes to be a good person, says London Business School professor Daniel Efron. Efron, who teaches behavioral ethics, says fading folks for what he calls the immoral road not taken could actually encourage bad behavior. When guys with integrity get put on a pedestal, he says, the implication is that they're exceptional, far greater than the rest of us. It suggests that most people in that situation would have done those bad things. So it reinforces a norm that most people are selfish and self-serving, and therefore it's okay if you're selfish and self-serving, everyone says. Giving Good Samaritan celebrity treatment may also have the unintended consequence of creating monster expectations, kind of like a kid expecting a prize every day that he's not late for school. You have to be careful not to go overboard, as one expert put it. But celebrating people for doing the right thing is still the right thing to do.